Welcome back to the Truth Factory. This video is going to be about Canada. So if you're Canadian or you want to learn a little bit more about the Prime Minister's controversy that happened yesterday, stay tuned. Yesterday was Canada Day, and besides our all year round love for poutine, maple syrup, and the noble beaver, it's the one day a year, in my opinion, that Canadians really show strong national patriotism, at least compared to our neighbors in the basement who are always telling us how great they are. We have a lot to be proud of. We have a beautiful country that people respect all around the world, and that deserves to be celebrated, especially on this Canada Day, as it marked 150 years of us being a country. Now, before I get into the controversy that inspired this video, let me give you a quick rundown on the history of our current Prime Minister, Justin. Yeah, he has great hair, right? That's most likely what won him the election, but don't let his Disney prince look sway you until you hear about his interesting educational background. He used to be a substitute French teacher, and he has a partial master's degree in environmental geography, which is important to remember for later. So really, he doesn't have a background that makes me go, wow, that guy should run a country. Oh, and his father was Pierre Elliot Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada in the 80s, which is also important to remember for later. Now let me show you the clip that has me and other Canadians fired up today.
We may be of every color and creed from every corner of the world. We may live in British Columbia, Yukon, the Northwest Territories, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Nunavut, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, or Newfoundland and Labrador. But we embrace that diversity while knowing in our hearts that we are all Canadian.
Oh, Mr. Prime Minister, you forgot to mention Alberta. Here it is on a map, Trudeau, if you want to study it. I mean, it's kind of surprising that you didn't know that, as you have a partial degree in environmental geography, but maybe geography isn't your strong suit. And maybe neither is being Prime Minister. I'm sure the 5 people in Nunavut appreciated the shout-out though, Trudeau. Can't forget them, but screw the 4 million people in Alberta, right? Is the Prime Minister allowed to make mistakes? Yeah, absolutely. He is human, or at the very least a globalist lizard, but it's embarrassing. I mean, the fact that he tried to name all the provinces and territories is weird enough, but then to forget one is sad, because memorizing them is in the grade 3 curriculum in Canada. Now, you might think that I'm blowing this completely out of proportion and that I'm being completely biased. Well, I bet you can guess what province I live in then. And I would say that I'm just as biased about Alberta as the Prime Minister is about Quebec. Except for I'm not the Prime Minister. Because those of you who don't know why this is a double insult to Alberta, let me give you a little bit of the rough history between Alberta and his father. Pierre Elliot Trudeau is blamed for the National Energy Program in the 1980s, where it raped Alberta's economy. And to quote a Liberal campaign strategist on it, screw the West, we'll take the rest. I didn't even make that up, that's real. Needless to say, after this program was launched, economic disaster quickly followed. Alberta's unemployment rate shot from 4% to more than 10%. Bankruptcy soared to 150%. A housing crisis ensued, resulting in values collapsing 40% in both Edmonton and Calgary. And Alberta's government plunged into significant debt levels. Thousands of people lost their jobs, their homes, their businesses, their dignity, and some even took their own lives. By the time the program was cancelled in 1986, the federal government collected more than $100 billion in today's dollars from Alberta, and many billions more in potential investment loss. Yeah, so I would say there's some bad blood with the Trudeau family in Alberta, and many Albertans feel Justin is just here to finish what his dad started. But let's see what Justin Trudeau thinks about Alberta being in power.
Regardez, le Canada fait dur maintenant parce que c'est des Albertans qui contrôlent notre agenda communautaire et socio-démocratique. Ça marche pas.
Est-ce que le Canada est mieux servi quand il y a plus de Québécois au pouvoir que quand il y a plus d'Albertans au pouvoir?
Ben, je suis libéral, alors c'est sûr que je pense que oui. Certainement, quand on regarde les grands premiers ministres du 20e siècle, les seuls qui ont vraiment tenu le coup, c'était des députés du Québec. T'sais, on a un rôle, ce pays, le Canada, est à nous.
Well, Alberta has the vast majority of oil. Think of Alberta like the Texas of Canada. We're big on beef and we're big on oil and we're mostly conservatives. And most of us are not a huge fan of Justin Trudeau. My family was an oil field one, like most people who live in Alberta, and I thought it was silly when my father, who owned an oil field service, which at one point went bankrupt in the 80s due to the National Energy Program, would tell me that his taxes probably put 12 Quebecois through college. And I thought that was hyperbole, but when you actually look at the numbers, it's kind of jarring. Because in Canada, the federal government makes equalization payments to less wealthy Canadian provinces to equalize the province's fiscal capacity. So basically, they take money from oil-rich provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan and they give it to provinces like Quebec. And here's a graph that shows how much of that goes to Trudeau's beloved Quebec. But don't get me wrong, I love Canada, I love Alberta, and to forget about us is not only embarrassing, it's just disrespectful. I personally think that he should go back to teaching French class or at least finish his degree in geography as it's clearly needed. But I also just happen not to like him because he's a fake globalist puppet who is so politically correct that he answers important questions by stating the current year.
I understand one of the priorities for you was to have a cabinet that was gender balanced. Why was that so important to you?
Because it's 2015.
Okay, you're not going to win Jeopardy like that.
Lines of latitude and longitude and a bumpier part defined by the Rockies form the borders of this Canadian province.
British Columbia.
No.
The Northwest Territories.
No.
Saskatchewan.
No.
Nunavut.
No.
It's 2015.
No.
Kristen.
What is Alberta?
Alberta is the province, yes.
Although I have to say there is one video clip of him that I really do love. That's our Prime Minister. So let me end on this. With Alberta's current economic climate, Trudeau should tread a little bit more carefully because unlike Justin, Alberta doesn't forget. Thank you and have a great night.